Hey everybody, my name is Chris and I want to talk to you about prayer today. Might go just a little bit longer than I normally do, but you might want to stick around. We're talking about how to hear the voice of God, or how do you really sort of curate a lifestyle that sets you up to hear the voice of God. That might be a better way to say it. For many people, this idea of hearing God speak is highly mysterious and there's a lot of intrigue, and as soon as you bring it up, their ears perk up and they want to hear more. We're going to talk about it. For other people, it seems to them that it makes sense for us to talk to God, but as soon as you start talking about hearing God, they go, wait a minute. You're hearing voices? It seems crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Well, to me, it's common sense that a relationship has to be two-sided. Like, if there's only one person talking in a relationship, that's not a relationship. That's loneliness. That's what that is. And so that's not what God invites us to. He doesn't invite us to loneliness. He invites us to relationship, and prayer is all about building a relationship. So let's talk about it. How do you do it? Well, Jesus said many great things about prayer, many important things, but I want to focus on one, because inside of this one particular verse from the scriptures, there's a few practical things that set us up for a lifestyle of hearing God speak. So what's the verse? Well, Jesus said this. He said, when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, pray to your Father who's in secret, and your Father who sees in secret, well, He'll reward you. So what do we get from that? Well, first, when you pray, go into your room. Now, the bigger principle there is that you would make it private. Private exclusivity in relationships always demonstrates a priority on that relationship. That's the way it works. It's just like me setting aside a time to get away with Marianne. Well, if I do that, Marianne's my wife, if I do that, then that demonstrates a priority on the relationship. And it will yield benefits in the relationship, not the least of which, if I set aside private time, she might actually say something to me that she might have otherwise just kept to herself. Well, what did Jesus say next? He said, go into your room, shut the door. So not only do we curate privacy in our relationship with God, but we also build in protection. Like shut the doors, like protecting. So how do we protect in our prayer movement with God? Well, I think one of the ways you can talk about that, or one of the ways we do that, is we set aside time that's rhythmic and consistent. When we do that, we're demonstrating a priority on the relationship, not just by making it private, but also by protecting it. Then what did Jesus say? He said, pray to your Father who is in secret. Well, I think it's fascinating that when Jesus, who is the culmination of God's love story to mankind, when He sought to show us what God was like, He used this word Father. And the invitation that we have is to come and in secret know our Father. To do that, we're going to have to make it personal. Now, I know for me, I pray this all the time. I constantly tell God, and even tell myself, this has to be personal. It can never be business. It's always personal and it's never business, which is to say it's never just rote memorization. It's never just stepping in to prayer. It's stepping into presence, stepping into something personal with God. And when I curate that in my life, I'm absolutely heightening the reality that God's going to speak to me. Well, what did He say next? Well, He said, not just to keep it private and not just to protect it and not just to make it personal, but that when I would do that He would reward me with Himself. Well, let me sit on that just a second. Like the voice of God is the reward for placing a priority on the relationship. I know sometimes I'm a little wordy, but don't miss it. Like, you place a priority on the relationship, God rewards you with Himself. That's the invitation of prayer. It's kind of amazing. Now, not only is He the reward of your pursuits in prayer, but that which is in private between you and Him ultimately goes public. You probably remember when you were in middle school, when you saw like one of your really close friends all of a sudden become friends with somebody else, and you noticed them in the hallway chatting and being all chummy, and all of a sudden you went like, that's a thing. Look at that. When did that develop? Well, in a similar way, your relationship with God will go public, and people will now begin to notice, wow, look at her, man. There's something going on there. She's different. She seems to be closer to God. Well, that's because in private, there's this personal pursuit, and the earnestness of that develops up and creates its own forward momentum and starts going public. Now, part of what that means is now that which was private and kept during one part of my day actually now begins to spread out through the course of my day. That's the maturity of your prayer movement will cause that. This is what the true invitation of Scriptures is, that we would have a life with God, not just about God and not just for God, but actually with Him. And so the practical outplaying of that means as I walk through my day, I'm actually with God and He's still speaking. That's amazing. So how do we wrap all this up? Well, really, this whole verse that Jesus said, let's just say it again. Jesus said, when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who's in secret. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Now, all of that can be kind of summed up in this one thing, that it's a cycle of seeking and finding. And so when we take the advice of Jesus and we begin to build these things in our life, all we're doing is we're reinforcing a reoccurring cycle of seeking and finding. And when you seek God and then you find His voice, it will change your life, and it will ruin you for a lot of other things in life because nothing compares. And you will be motivated again and again and again to come, do what? Seek and then find. Look, I hope that helps, and I pray that for you and for me, that we all experience the reality not just of speaking to God, but of hearing Him speak to us.